Sometimes, the hardest part of following God isn't taking the first step, it's taking the next one, when nothing seems to be changing. Have you ever obeyed God and quietly wondered if it made any difference? You prayed. You tried to remain faithful. You kept showing up. You made the difficult decision. You walked away from what you knew was pulling you backward. You trusted God, even when trusting Him cost you something. But after all of that, life still looked the same. The prayer still seemed unanswered. The opportunity still had not arrived. The relationship still had not changed. The struggle was still present, and the waiting continued. At first, you told yourself to be patient. You reminded yourself that God's timing is different from yours. You tried to stay encouraged, but as the days became weeks and the weeks became months, questions began to enter your mind. Did I misunderstand God? Did I make the wrong decision? Was my obedience pointless? What if none of this is making a difference? If you have ever felt that way, you are not alone. There are seasons when following God feels less like walking through an open door and more like continuing down a road without knowing when the scenery will change. You are moving, but it does not feel like you are making progress. You are praying, but heaven feels quiet. You are planting, but nothing has appeared above the ground. Imagine placing a seed into the soil. You cover it, you water it, then you wait. The next morning, the ground looks exactly the same. A week later, it may still look unchanged. From the surface, it can appear as though nothing is happening, but underneath the soil, something has already begun. The seed is breaking open, roots are forming, life is growing in a place no one can see. The invisible work comes before the visible evidence. Faith can feel like that. Some of God's most important work in your life may be happening beneath the surface. It may not be visible to other people. It may not even be fully visible to you. But unseen does not mean inactive. Quiet does not mean absent. And waiting does not automatically mean that you have been forgotten. Think about Joseph. He received dreams long before he understood how they would be fulfilled. Between the dream and the fulfillment, there was betrayal, there was injustice, there was isolation, there was waiting. But the difficult chapters were not wasted chapters. God was developing wisdom, endurance, humility, and leadership in Joseph before placing him in a position of responsibility. Think about David. He was anointed long before he wore the crown. He returned to ordinary responsibilities. He faced opposition. He spent time running and hiding. The promise was real, but the process was longer and harder than he may have imagined. Think about Noah. He obeyed before he saw the rain. His faithfulness was not based on visible proof. He continued because he trusted the one who had spoken. Their obedience was not wasted. The waiting was part of their preparation. God was not only preparing something for them, He was preparing them for what was ahead. One of our greatest temptations is to believe that if nothing around us is changing, God must not be working. But visible circumstances are not the only measurement of spiritual progress. Sometimes God changes the situation. Sometimes He changes the person standing inside the situation. And sometimes He does both on different timelines. Maybe you are more patient than you used to be. Maybe you have learned to pray instead of panic. Maybe something that once controlled you no longer has the same power. Maybe you are learning to set boundaries. Maybe you are becoming more disciplined. Maybe you are finally recognizing patterns that kept pulling you backward. Maybe your circumstances look familiar, but you are no longer the same person facing them. The greatest evidence that God is working isn't always that your circumstances have changed. Sometimes it's that you have. Faith is not pretending that disappointment does not hurt. Faith is not denying the reality of your circumstances. Faith is not forcing yourself to feel positive every moment. Faith is choosing to trust God's character, even when you do not understand His timing. It is continuing to pray when the answer has not arrived. It is continuing to live with integrity when compromise would be easier. It is continuing to serve when no one applauds. It is continuing to take faithful steps when you cannot yet see where they are leading. You may not be able to control how quickly your situation changes, but you can decide who you will become while you wait. You can become bitter, or you can become deeper. You can allow disappointment to pull you away from God, or you can bring your disappointment honestly to Him. You can stop because progress feels invisible, or you can remember that roots grow in hidden places. Maybe today you are tired. Maybe you have been faithful for longer than you expected. Maybe you are wondering how much longer you can continue. You do not need to pretend that the season is easy. Bring the frustration to God. Bring the questions. Bring the disappointment. But do not confuse God's silence with His absence. Do not assume that an unfinished story is a failed story. And do not abandon the process simply because you cannot yet see the result. Keep praying. Keep growing. Keep becoming disciplined. Keep seeking wisdom. Keep studying Scripture. Keep doing the next faithful thing that is in front of you. Not because you can already see the outcome, but because the one you are following is faithful. One day, you may look back at this season and recognize that God was strengthening your foundation. You may realize that He was protecting you from moving before you were ready. You may understand that the delay developed something in you that immediate success never could. Or you may still carry some unanswered questions. But even when every question is not answered, you can continue placing your trust in the character of God. Your obedience matters. Your private prayers matter. Your integrity matters. The small decisions no one celebrates matter. The roots matter, even before the fruit appears. If this message encouraged you, subscribe to Built by God. Every week, we release cinematic messages created to help you grow in faith, discipline, and purpose, so you can become who God created you to be. And remember, just because you cannot see God working does not mean He has stopped working.